Continuing with hand sewing our mask, I'm going to be working on the lining, which is this part of the mask. It's the lining inside our mask. It's going to go like on this one, right here. So we can put a filter or not on the inside. So this is the pocket lining of our mask. I'm going to be doing this back stitch, which you can see looks different on the back than the front. Here is my little sample. Now I've marked these lines with a pen that is, it disappears when you iron it, so you can draw and write whatever you want. I know this is the refill of the pen, but I couldn't find the pen. I could only find the refills. And then I realized that it's just as easy to use it as a marker without the pen. So first thing we have to do is we have to make this fold. And how I fold it is either with an iron, but right now I'm sitting down in my knitting sewing chair very comfortably, and I don't want to be getting up. So I have my thimble on, which I love my thimble. Without it, it's very difficult for me to sew. So this is what I need to do. I need to fold the side twice. You can measure this or eyeball it. It really doesn't matter on this particular project because it's just a mask. So the preliminary fold, I kind of just press with my finger, with just the ball of my finger. Press, 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 and press over here as well. Then I can kind of run my thimble over, but it could be any item. They sell some of Clover sells a seam presser, but I found just a plastic spoon will do it as well. All I'm looking for is a nice fold here. So either iron it, press it with your fingernail, press it with your thimble. Anything will do. My little scissors. I'm looking for a nice, sharp, crisp fold. Okay, so now fold it over again. Same bit. Use my plastic spoon to press it down. Okay, so now I have it all pressed, and I would like to have my seam, not kind of, but straight. It's always nice to have a straight seam. So I will need to mark this. And I have a ruler, dressmaker's ruler, and what I'll do is I'll just mark where I want to sew. Right along there. So I take my iron out marking pen and just pull a nice sewing line right there. So now, here are the two needles that I'm using. One is obviously much larger, a little bit bent, and that's not great, but that's what I've got right now within arm's reach. So I've got the smaller the needle, the smaller your stitch will be. The larger the needle, the larger It makes logical sense. So in case, if this was really important to me, I might baste, baste it. So the first thing I'm going to do here is, it's kind of sticking out a little bit. My fold is not perfect, but what I'm going to do is make it perfect and just give it a little trim. Trim those guys. Here we are. Perfect. Now, I don't like to make knots, but if I do make a knot, I do the quilter's knot, which is the thread on the side of the needle. Wrap the thread around 2, 3, 4, 5 times, or any amounts that works for you, and pull, 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 and there we have a little quilter's knot. Can you see that? There it is. So I'm going to trim the little tail off. I don't like little tails, so trim that. And so I could, if this was a very important seam to me, I may just baste this. Now I'm using this long needle, and I'm going to take large, large stitches, just basting. Large, large, doesn't really matter. All I'm looking for is for this to stay in place, and I don't want to use pins or clips. This will work for me just fine. So that is a basting stitch, very large, very fast. And you're going to use contrasting thread so you're able to see it real good. So when it's time to take it out, you'll be able to take it out easily. So now I am ready to sew the back stitch. Now I don't always like to make a knot, so this is the way I usually start it. On a sewing machine, you usually start a beginning of a seam by going back and forth. Here, what I do is I come through and pull the thread, go slowly, 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 till I have just a little tail. And then I go back and pull, 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 so I have a little loop. And then I come through that loop, and that anchors my thread. And I do it again just for double measure, although on this particular corner here it doesn't really matter because it's going to go in the seam. Then I clip this little tail because I don't want it to get in my way. So my thread is anchored, and I'm going to come down just like that, stay on my line that I drew. Do it slowly, behind it, come up. So I'm stabbing, pushing, and then I put my finger behind it, and so I come up right at the line. Back stitch. So we go back again, come through, and pull through. I'm not in a hurry. I'm very relaxed. But this time I have a table, but I don't always have a table in my lap, and I can kind of hold this with my finger. But I would like this to be taut. I would like the tension to be like that. It would be a lot easier if it was taut, and I could just put my needle right in there. So to help with that, what I have is a tailor's ham. What is a tailor's ham? Well, they use it for ironing and through the sleeves and what have you. It's available on Amazon. I found it. Hold on, I'll show it to you. And it's a seam roll. I was searching for tailor's ham. It's $18.58, and it's made by Dritz. There's many different versions, or in our class, we're going to use, or you can substitute, a nice paper towel roll. But I'll show you that later. But for now, I'll show you the idea of it. So I've got my tailor's ham. I'm going to tuck it under, and I'm going to pin right where my seam is. Just like that. And now, I should move the camera a little bit. And now, I am able to pull this seam nice and taut and able to sew easier. Oh, wait a minute. I'm out of range again. There we go. So easier. So back stitch. Push. Oh dear. Have to watch out for those little knots. Behind it. Back stitch. And it's nice and neat. The back, the front. So the thread just came out here, and I'm going to go in right behind it and come out in front of it. And that is the back stitch. And as I progress, I will move this a little further up. I keep bumping into the camera. So I can keep sewing and keep this nice and taut. Trying to keep my stitches even, but if they're not, this is a handmade project and it's not supposed to be perfect. But I'm going to try and do it as neat as I can and still stay in the camera view without bumping the camera. But anyway, with this, the camera so close to my work, I keep bumping into it. But there's the back stitch. And this will hold, when you need a really strong seam, this is the stitch to use. And basting stitch, very long. So the shorter the needle, the smaller the stitches will be. So if we have a very large needle, long, and notice how thin the short needle is. It's easier to go through layers than a fat, long needle. But you need to use a needle that's most comfortable for you. And of course, a thimble and good thread. I'm using silk thread at the moment by Gutermann. Let's see, where's my Gutermann? and this is 110 yards, and this silk thread. Silk thread goes through very easily, so when one can find it, it's really nice to have. So that is the back stitch.